Alright. I need to catch up. Alright. Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. I listened to the audiobook and I want to go over some of the main points in this book that I've been thinking about with everything going on. So my first point in this book quickly is that leaders create circles of safety. I think about this when I'm at my job. I think about this when I'm in a group of people. Leaders create an environment at which people can grow and prosper together and work together. That's what leaders do. They create culture that's positive and that grows healthily. Profit, what happens to the group, that serves the people in the group. The leader grows that circle of safety, that culture, that trust, that environment. With that challenge comes the control of the culture and how to grow that culture. It's almost like being a gardener. How do you set conditions at which people grow? I'm thinking of education in this sense. But with that comes the idea of having empathy all the time as a leader. It's moment to moment. It's being with the people. It's listening to the people. It's seeing what works and what's not working. It's creating that environment, creating that growth. And with the challenge of giving a vision to a group of people to excel to, something that sort of outsizes, Simon calls it, outsizes the resources but undersizes the intellect of the group, challenges them to grow, gives them a vision. The vision inspires the group. There comes a challenge of destructive abundance with things like this. Now when I say destructive abundance, I mean the inverted U curve. There's too much and there's too little, and being a leader and being creative in any sense, I think, in life, and whatever we do, deals with finding some sense of moderation. Do we lean more towards scarcity? Do we lean more toward abundance? Which one will grow the group the best? The problem with abundance is that too much of things can depreciate the value that we see, and we start to take things for granted. He talks about the abundance in technology, the abundance in relying on things too much, the abundance of when we are causing pain to someone. If we can't see the result of the pain that we're causing, we're more likely to go further with hurting the person because we can't see the result of the bad thing. It's destructive abundance is a huge topic. I bring it back to Aristotle's idea of the virtue between the vices, the extremes. Where do we sit on the inverted U curve for things like health, for exercise, for homework, for pressuring ourselves? That's been the big theme for me for this book. The brain chemicals that we're firing off by things that we take in, information, things that are unhealthy for us, alcohol. How many relationships are good? What's a golden mean with the amount of people that we should have in a company or in a group of people for it to be productive? Destructive abundance, the inverted U curve for me, is the main analogy that centers around this book. The danger of abstraction. When we have too much up here, we begin to think people. We begin to think things that we should be feeling. And that abstraction can do some damaging, dangerous things. There's a lot of talk of brain chemicals in this book too. I call it EDSO, or dose. You could call it dose. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. I won't go into too heavily on what those chemicals are. And he talks about the sway in these chemicals and how our behaviors and how we interact with the environment can shift the balance in these chemicals. A healthy life is a harmonious dance and production of all of these chemicals, instead of firing off dopamine every single second from things we get on our cell phones or things we find on the internet, or having too much consumption probably, and then versus like thinking that numbers are more important than actual human relationships, which we can actually get the most important brain chemicals from, like trust and things that create a good circle of safety, which leaders should be paying attention to when they create environments for people. Another good analogy with this, that's from, I think it's from Steve Jobs. I can't remember who said it. I could be wrong, but the idea of, do we adapt ourselves to the technology that we have, or do we adapt the technology to who we are? Are we shaping our environment based off of the organism that we already are and strengthening that, or are we adapting too much to the technology, and in a way, could the technology be mastering us? That's something I thought about too. That's another way of destructive abundance. Like, I can use my phone, right? But if it's appendage to my body and it becomes a distraction and it becomes about dopamine cycles and me just getting a hit off of my Twitter feed or my Facebook feed all the time, that's not healthy. That's an addiction to technology. Or am I using my phone as a tool for when the time comes instead of a crutch? In terms of destructive abundance for groups of people that work together, my fifth point on here, my idea, is the idea of hardship on the inverted U curve and how we're able to challenge people. The book talks about how smaller groups of people committed to a large vision are more free to do inventive and take risks than larger companies. It's actually better to challenge yourself. Like, there's more innovation. for people that come up with ideas and take risks as a smaller company, which I thought was mind-boggling. You'd think bigger corporations and companies would be more innovative, but they're such under a pressure to serve, and it's such to standardize things because of the size, that it's hard for them to innovate and make different changes. So sometimes a small group under a large amount of hardship is better than a large group under a small amount, or a large group under a large amount of hardship. So you can see how destructive abundance plays into this. A decrease in hardship leads to a decrease in cooperation because you're not forced to cooperate. It's not uncomfortable if you don't cooperate. It's a fascinating theme to me. Simon Sinek says past the mid-90s, it's been really hard for our society because we've gone over the dopamine edge. We're starting to get, in terms of access, so much things because of this disparity, I think, in like the resources that we have access to, that it's hard for us to actually spread everything out evenly. But he says at the very end, we may have to redefine our definition of hardship when it comes to excess, because as humans, we are not meant to thrive in excess. We are meant to thrive in scarcity, hunting and gathering, right? We are meant to thrive under harsh conditions and scarcity, to go out and hunt for food and come back, instead of having so many things that we don't know what to do with, or we have it in excess. There's a statistic that says, like, families in the United States waste, like, I can't remember how much money it is. It's got to be tens of billions of dollars in the food industry, because the average family wastes like 50% of the food, right? It's never used up. So we waste food out of excess, and then developing countries don't have the technology or the transportation or systems in place to get the food to the people in time before it spoils. They can't store it right. So their problem in excess is they don't have the system to get it to the people in time. While we waste food out of excess, they waste food because their systems are too scarce to displace the food to everybody in time. There are other factors involved in that, but you can see how those are on opposite sides of the inverted U-curve. Like, one of them is out of excess, one of them is out of scarcity. And then my last point on this is leaders serve people with the culture that they create. They serve the people in the organization and what that organization, the change that organization wants to make. Just as our habits and our attitudes and our behaviors make up our character as individuals, the character of a bunch of people together make up the culture of the organization, whether it's a trusting environment or it's a tense environment, or there's competition over performance and raises and money and just top to bottom. It's damaging. Got some hiccups there. But I think what really good organizations do is they focus more on the curiosity toward the vision the organization holds than the discipline, right? I'm wondering if we focus too much on discipline and performance and less on curiosity and ideas. It's the same in education. It's all based on performance. It's the same in places of work where you have to perform to get the next paycheck, or you have to perform to get the next incentive, or stuff like that. So I wonder if we feed more of a curiosity toward a vision than a discipline. We need the discipline, but if you're curious about something, you're far likely to work harder about it than you are if you're just disciplined about it. If I'm curious about something, I'm gonna keep, that's the fire that lights the engine, why I want to learn. If I just want to be good at it and disciplined, that doesn't really help that much. That's just my perspective, at least. It turns out that growth as an abstract idea actually doesn't work as well as a compelling why from a leader. Growing in what sense, I think, is the question. Growth is an abstract destination and non-specific test. It doesn't ignite the human spirit. A compelling why does this better, because it's a why, it's a reason, it's something you can have faith in, rather than simply just an action. Leadership is about the responsibility for lives of people and a culture that you're creating and people that you're changing. You're creating a culture. It's not about numbers. It's a responsibility for actual lives. The cause the leader suggests must be bigger than the company. It must outsize the resources, but not the intellect of the people. It must challenge them. Those are some of my thoughts on Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. The last thing I'll leave you with right now is the 12th step. It talks about Alcoholics Anonymous in this, and the idea of creating a safe environment for people to face the struggle that they have with their addiction to alcohol. And he says, the leader, I can't remember his name, he said, the people in the program don't make it, don't reach sobriety unless they complete the 12th step through the Alcoholics Anonymous program. Say that 10 times fast. The final step is to commit to helping another person reach sobriety, which is fascinating to me. That's what maintains their habit and their ability to slip back into old habits, is their commitment to helping someone else get there as well. Pretty fascinating. I love me some books. All right, that's all. I'll put this on the PalkaDots channel because I got some ideas. I'm thinking about some stuff. That's all. Thanks for watching DFTBA. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Everybody, Palka, look at me catching up here. Going to make a pizza.